Isaac Newton is one of the most important scientists in history. He lived in the 17th century, a time when many people still explained the world with myths and tradition. But Newton used observation, logic, and experiments to discover the laws of nature. His work changed the way we understand the universe. He studied mathematics, physics, and astronomy, and his discoveries became the foundation for modern science. Because of him, we can explain why the planets move, how objects fall, and even how light works. Many people know the story of the apple that fell from a tree and inspired Newton to think about gravity. But his life was much more than that simple story. It was a journey of curiosity, hard work, and incredible discoveries. Today, more than 300 years later, his ideas are still used in classrooms, laboratories, and even in space exploration. Isaac Newton's name is a symbol of human intelligence and perseverance. In this story, we will explore his life step by step, his childhood, his studies, his greatest discoveries, and his legacy that continues to inspire the world. Part 1. Early life. Isaac Newton was born on December 25, 1642, in a small village called Woolsthorpe in England. His birth was very difficult. He was so small and weak that nobody believed he would survive. But against all odds, the baby lived. Newton's father had died before he was born, and when his mother remarried, she left Isaac in the care of his grandmother. This made his childhood lonely and sometimes sad. But even in those early years, young Isaac showed a strong imagination and curiosity. He loved to build things with his hands. As a child, he created simple machines like windmills, water clocks, and even kites with lanterns. The villagers noticed that he was different from other children, quiet, thoughtful, and always experimenting. At school, Newton was not the best student at first, but when he realized that he could be better than others, he began to study seriously. Soon, he was at the top of his class. He spent hours reading, drawing, and learning everything he could. These early experiences shaped his character. Loneliness taught him independence. Curiosity taught him to explore, and discipline taught him to work hard. All these qualities prepared him for the extraordinary discoveries he would one day make. Part 2. Education in Cambridge. As a teenager, Isaac Newton was sent to the King's School in Grantham. There, he lived with a local family and spent much of his free time reading and building models. He built sundials to measure time and small machines that surprised his classmates. At first, his mother wanted him to leave school and become a farmer, but Newton had no interest in farming. His teachers saw his talent and convinced his mother to let him continue his education. This decision changed his life forever. In 1661, at the age of 18, Newton entered the University of Cambridge. At Cambridge, he studied mathematics, philosophy, and astronomy. He read the works of great thinkers like Aristotle, Galileo, and Descartes. But Newton was not satisfied with their explanations. He believed there was more to discover. Cambridge became the place where his ideas started to grow. He often studied late into the night, writing notes and testing theories. He asked questions that others ignored. Why do objects fall? What is light? How do the planets move? During these years, Europe faced the Great Plague of 1665. The university closed, and Newton returned to Woolsthorpe for almost 2 years. But this time away from school became one of the most productive periods of his life. It was there, in the quiet countryside, that some of his greatest discoveries were born. Part 3. The Apple and Gravity. During the time Newton was back in Woolsthorpe because of the plague, he spent many hours thinking about nature. One day, while sitting in the garden of his home, he saw an apple fall from a tree. It was a simple event, but it raised a powerful question in his mind. Why does the apple always fall straight down to the ground, and not sideways or upwards? Newton began to think deeply about this mystery. He realized that the same force that pulls the apple to the ground might also control the movement of the moon and the planets. Could it be that one invisible law ruled both the earth and the heavens? This idea was revolutionary. For thousands of years, people believed that the heavens and the earth were governed by different rules. But Newton suggested that one single force, what we now call gravity, held the universe together. He imagined the Earth pulling on the apple, and the Earth itself being pulled by the sun. The planets moved in their orbits because of this invisible force. Everything, from falling objects to the stars above, was connected by the same law. The story of the apple may sound simple, but it represents one of the greatest discoveries in history. Newton did not discover gravity. People always knew things fall, but he explained why they fall and how this force works across the entire universe. This moment in the garden marked the beginning of Newton's most important ideas that would later change the world of science forever. Part 4. Discoveries in Mathematics. While thinking about the mysteries of the universe, Newton also worked on mathematics. He believed that numbers and formulas could explain the hidden laws of nature. During his years of study, Newton created a new branch of mathematics, calculus. This powerful tool allowed him to describe change and motion in a way no one had done before. With calculus, he could explain how planets move in their orbits, how objects accelerate, and even how light bends. At first, Newton kept his discoveries private, writing them in notebooks. He was shy and afraid of criticism, but his mathematical ideas were so advanced that later scientists used them as the foundation for engineering, physics, and technology. Newton also made important contributions to algebra and geometry. He developed methods to solve complex problems and to study curves, angles, and infinite series. His work in mathematics was so great that today students all over the world still learn and use his methods. Without Newton's discoveries in mathematics, modern science and technology, rockets, computers, even satellites, would not exist as we know them. For Newton, numbers were not just symbols on paper. They were the language of the universe. Through mathematics, he unlocked secrets that had been hidden since the beginning of time. Part 5. Light and Optics. Newton was also fascinated by light. Most people in his time believed that white light was pure and simple. They thought colors were created by objects or by the air. But Newton had a different idea. He wondered, what if white light is not simple, but made of many colors? To test this, he made an experiment with a glass prism. He let a ray of sunlight pass through the prism, and the light broke into a rainbow of colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. This showed that white light was actually a mixture of all colors. Newton then used a second prism to combine the rainbow back into white light. This proved that colors are part of light itself, not something added later. His experiments changed the way people understood light forever. He also built the first reflecting telescope, which used mirrors instead of lenses. This design produced clearer images of the stars and planets, and is still used in modern telescopes today. Through his studies, Newton discovered that light and colors follow laws, just like gravity and motion. For him, every experiment was a way to see more of the order that God had placed in creation. The work of Newton in optics not only explained rainbows and vision, but also opened doors for modern physics, astronomy, and even technology like cameras and lasers. Part 6. The Principia Mathematica. In 1687, Newton published his greatest work, Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, usually called the Principia. This book is considered one of the most important in the history of science. In the Principia, Newton explained the 3 laws of motion. The first law says that an object will stay still or keep moving in a straight line unless a force acts on it. The second law explains that force equals mass times acceleration. The third law states, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. These laws help people understand how objects move on Earth and in space. From a falling apple to the movement of the moon, everything could now be explained with simple rules. But Newton did not stop there. He also explained the universal law of gravitation. He showed that the same force that pulls an apple to the ground also keeps the planets moving around the sun. This was a revolutionary idea. Suddenly, the universe seemed connected by one invisible law. Newton's Principia gave scientists and thinkers a new way to understand the world. It showed that the universe is not random, but works like a machine, guided by natural laws created by God. Even today, more than 300 years later, his laws are still used in physics, engineering, and space exploration. Part 7. Newton and Faith. Although Newton is remembered for his science, faith was also a central part of his life. He believed that the universe was created by God with order and purpose. For Newton, studying nature was a way to understand the mind of the Creator. Newton read the Bible often and wrote many pages about theology. He studied prophecy, the history of the church, and the meaning of God's laws. To him, science and faith were not enemies. They were two ways of discovering truth. Newton believed that the laws of nature were like the handwriting of God in the universe. When he looked at the stars, the motion of planets, or the beauty of light, he saw the power and wisdom of the Creator. Even though some of his religious ideas were different from others of his time, his devotion was real. He was humble, always saying that his discoveries were only small glimpses of God's infinite creation. In his own words, Newton once said, "I do not know what I may appear to the world, but to myself, I seem to have been only like a boy playing on the seashore, while the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me." This shows his deep humility. Despite all his knowledge, he felt he had only touched the surface of God's truth. Part 8. His later years. In his later years, Isaac Newton became a respected and famous figure across Europe. In 1696, he accepted a new position as Warden of the Royal Mint in London. This job was very different from science, but Newton took it seriously. He worked hard to reform England's coinage and to fight against counterfeit money. His discipline and attention to detail made him successful even in this unusual role. Later, he was promoted to Master of the Mint, a position he kept until the end of his life. This showed how much people trusted him, not only as a scientist, but also as a leader of integrity. In 1703, Newton became the president of the Royal Society, the most important scientific institution in England. Under his leadership, science gained new respect and influence. In 1705, Queen and even knighted him, giving him the title Sir Isaac Newton. Despite all these honors, Newton's life was not always easy. He sometimes argued with other scientists, and he was very protective of his ideas. But even his critics admitted that his discoveries had changed the world. In his later years, Newton continued to study, write, and reflect on the mysteries of nature and God. He lived a simple and disciplined life, often absorbed in thought, always searching for more truth. Newton died in 1727 at the age of 84. He was buried with great honor in Westminster Abbey, the resting place of kings and heroes. This showed the respect England and the world had for the man who revealed the hidden laws of the universe. Part 9. Legacy of Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton left behind a legacy that continues to shape our world today. His discoveries in mathematics, physics, and astronomy became the foundation of modern science. When we study gravity, motion, or light, we are walking in Newton's footsteps. His book Principia Mathematica is considered one of the most important works ever written. It not only explained how planets move, but also gave humanity a new way of thinking, that the universe is governed by laws that can be discovered and understood. Newton's impact went far beyond science. His story showed the power of curiosity, discipline, and faith. He was not just a man of numbers. He was a man who believed that exploring nature was also a way of exploring God's creation. Even today, scientists, engineers, and dreamers look to Newton as a guide. Every rocket launched, every satellite in space, every equation taught in school, all carry the fingerprints of the man who once watched an apple fall and asked, "Why?" Newton's life reminds us that one person's dedication can change the world forever. His genius continues to inspire generations to think, question, and discover. What do you think about Newton's discoveries? Do you believe his curiosity changed the way humanity sees the universe? Share your thoughts in the comments. We would love to hear your perspective. If you enjoyed this journey through the life of Isaac Newton, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next inspiring story. Together, let's keep learning, keep questioning, and keep discovering.